Welcome in, RFK Refugees podcast. Ted here, John here, live from Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, but not LinkedIn, and maybe a certain maybe a certain DC United player dropped the fact that he posts on LinkedIn. Maybe we'll make that part of our repertoire because we need to gain his audience. We've already got the audience of several players. Several parents of players. We're big fans. We got some fan bases of I won't say who. I won't drop who, but we several players on both DC and the Spirit that have reached out to us. I'll say that much. So yeah, it's
our audience is your parents, basically. That's who we're going for. If you play soccer, we're going for your parents.
Exactly. All right, John, how you doing, my friend? How was your weekend? You have a story, man. You actually are finally DC United is finally granting us press credentials. We've gained enough of a following thanks to you all. I think we can go and say thank you to the fans because you guys have built the show, listened to the show, enjoy the show, and I think it's been great. So you actually got access. You got to go to the press box. You got to schmooze with the big time people.
I did.
All the several hundred reporters that cover DC United.
It's very funny that it's basically just the same crew that I talked to at the Spirit games, just in a different room. So I mean, it was good. It was great. Thanks to Sam for making it happen.
Yeah.
I was saying, I was like, it's really been 7 years of doing this show to get, and it has. So we're finally there. I think I really do think there is a benefit for me watching from that vantage point to be able to really understand what's going on and sort of look at positioning and things like that, because TV just doesn't do it for me. And I think also when I'm watching at home with my phone in my hand, like my acuity slips slightly. So I think it's a lot better that if I'm sitting there. Anyway, yeah. So it was great. Got to be there in person and got to see a comeback victory, which is I don't think I was predicting.
Yeah.
I have to go back and check if I did predict that, but I don't think that I did.
You definitely got a better view for 2 minutes of the game on the TV stream. It was literally stuck like on the camera that's like on the field level.
Cool.
So it was like watching like the ball sort of chase around and you couldn't really see anything other than I guess the player who was attacking. It was stuck there for like 2 minutes.
It's like, what would your view be if you were strapped in a chair with like a neck brace on? Like that's what the game would look like. We can't move your neck at all. That's what it would look like. How was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. It was I was refereeing soccer, trying to do that action. So a lot of high level teams tournament. This like March is like Richmond is like just full of like tournaments. There's like one every single weekend basically leading up through all of March. So I saw some people, I saw some friends. I saw someone I would go to DC United games on the regular and go to Kickers games on the regular. His son is now refereeing. So that was definitely the man, I feel old. There was also a moment where I was refereeing with a guy who was, I looked like he was around my age. He was definitely like, in his 30s, I could tell. And we're walking out to the field and they're like, oh, we forgot the ball. Okay, whoever's youngest, go get it. And the guy just immediately like doesn't even ask how old I am. Just turns around and runs.
Not you.
I'm like, wait, how old are you? I was like, how old are you? He said 32. I'm like, oh my goodness.
He was right.
Like, I'm 2 years older than you. He was right. I'm like 2 years older, and he just turned around.
He clocked you very, very specifically. I think is what happened there.
It's the gray in the beard, I'm sure. It's the gray in the beard, the gray in the hair, all that stuff that is developed early. But yeah, that's my weekend, man. And I also see DC United win, which was great. It was good to see. Let's get into it. We won't talk about the game first. We did got some questions. I think it's appropriate to start with some general DC United news, and we got the allocation numbers. So if you haven't been paying attention to DC, you know that the allocation, MLS has started to release allocation numbers. They've actually like published them. So this was kind of like they did one at the beginning of the year. Now this is kind of like after sort of the first wave. Window is still open. There's still opportunities to use the allocation money. But basically, and there's also maybe some allocation money that's still hidden. We'll get into that. We'll get into that into a minute. Or basically allocation money that hasn't been acted upon. We'll say DC United currently sitting at 122,000 reported allocation money. Several other teams, I think, Atlanta's still in the millions. LA Galaxy with a big fat goose egg, and they are a team that has had to like shed salary. They went for broke, and
They
when the
have
top
they have pulled the copper wiring out of their house to sell it to get back to zero. That's sort of the situation they have in the roster right now.
DC United acting as the loan shark, as it like gives them
Mm-hmm.
GAM, and then charges back, gets a percentage of GAM back.
Mm-hmm.
So
every week you don't pay us this GAM back, and price goes up.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's the GAM, and we got some questions related to it. So Hoya ADCU says, did DC get a hit in Pegla? We'll talk about it. I'm confused by this very small GAM in remaining in DCU's coffers. I thought they had been saving for future signings. So let's get into it. So I think, so yes, they have sold. So they obviously traded Teku Pietro for cash. They have sold Matty Mattia Kimone. Probably going to sell Christian Fletcher in the future. I think how that works is you can convert that into GAM, but my guess is like you can maybe within the window, maybe within a certain point, maybe you can do that basically like whenever you need it. You can tell MLS, hey, we want to sign this player. We need to use this amount of GAM, and we're banking the fact that we sold, Mattia Kimbone for $2 million. So we need to take $1 million out of that and sort of apply it to GAM. Maybe you can, just go ahead and grab it and apply for it. So I think they could still, utilize that GAM. I would say, take these numbers with a grain of salt. They're also, of course, selected the designated player model. They can switch. That'll give them an extra $1 million in GAM. And maybe there's some benefit in kind of like playing a little bit of a shell game with the amount of GAM you have, especially now that it's public. You don't want teams necessarily knowing, what you're actually going to be doing as far as that GAM or where you're actually going to be using it for. Because no doubt, like GMs are looking at these numbers and they are trying to like surmise out what teams might need help
Right.
and where they might need to get assets from.
What's that international spot really worth to you? And then I can look in your wallet and be like, I know exactly how much it's worth to you.
Exactly. So I think there's some shell games going on. And RGN DCS with the Revelation DC has a little over $122,000 in GAM remaining. Do you think DC might not have shifted any of the transfer fees, Ted Kudu, Pietro, and Akaboni into GAM? Possibly not now. Maybe it's a situation they can wait until later. I don't think there hasn't really been any sort of like rules like once you make the sale, like you have to say this is how much GAM we're going to take.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
Anyway, not a published rule anyway.
Yeah.
Now it will be very disappointing if they do not convert it, nor do they spend any other. Like if it looks like debt service, then it would be kind of a bummer. Or if it does, or like if there's not an expansion. The problem is you'll never see it, right? Like unless there's a player signing where it's like, oh, that's where this dollar went. I watched this dollar move. But if it goes to like slightly improving the situation for the academy in some sort of non-discernible but to them very important way, to fans it will have not existed. So it's a challenge, particularly where we're getting like league-wide transparency, which is really important, but then there's still like transparency to the level we'd like it cannot exist. Like we just want Ali Mackay's like Outlook password, so we can just be like, just let us in, just let us we won't mess with anything. We just want to look. We just want to see what's going on.
Yeah. So MLS this is better, but again, MLS remains like opaque. So you got to hope this is something that they're kind of pushing for. And if you haven't had a moment, I know we're all watching, where our dollars are going for our media subscriptions, but the Athletic, of course, has their weekly GM anonymous survey. That's always a really good read. And a lot of GMs have been talking about how the cash, especially the cash trades part of the deal is like probably the most significant thing to happen in far as the league, and like just how many teams like we're just like chomping at the bit just to maximize that. So lots of I think of exciting things going on in MLS, and that article at the Athletic is definitely worth a read. Let's get into it, man. First shout out for where they post on LinkedIn. DC United 2-1 winners over Kansas City, a come from behind victory. I'm trying to figure out like how we want to break this down. I think I posted online overall general thoughts about this game. I maybe like I feel like this is kind of like my favorite win of the Lassane era, and how I explain that. Let me explain this. So, like, we've had a lot of fun wins. We've had a lot of riding chainsaws, yeah, or riding dirt bikes, holding chainsaws, and snorting cocaine off a blade or something like that. Type wins. We've had the Nashville win. We've had the some of the Ted Pietro goal. A lot of like come from behind wins. It's been pretty rare that it was a come from behind win, but just the way they kind of held on in those last few minutes, the way they really kind of just really suffocated that game out. It felt like a team that was finally like, this was a team that was sort of in control when holding a lead, and looked for the most part extremely comfortable once they got that lead. I mean, Casey really didn't have that type of response back. So that for me was like a really positive thing to see, because I want to see this team, if we're in year 2 of the rebuild, I want to see this team act like a grown-up team, act like a responsible team that's gonna, rather than going for the thrilling, as much as the thrilling 4-3 victories come from behind against Nashville are great, I want to see this team go out and just put together a performance that where they're the best team on the field. They generated more chances, they looked more dangerous than Kansas City, and get a deserved win, see it out, not need like last minute heroics, as fun as those are. So I think that's why, of the Lassane era, like, this is kind of my favorite win, and kind of my, like, I want to see more of these types of wins. I maybe sprinkle like an exciting one in July or August. I'll take a little excitement in my life, but give me more like just comfortable, like holding it out last 10 minutes, really suffocating the team. So
Yeah, Jose Umana had a stat saying it was the first home win in like 235 days,
oof.
which he said to Benteke's face, and Benteke kind of just looked very quizzical. Like, is that a real number? Is that is that true? So yeah, no, there were lots. There's lots to be happy about. I think Kansas City is pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had not scored before this game. The goal that DC United conceded looked like 75% of the goals that were scored of them last year. There's like a real big weakness for like second runners in the top of the box. I've not crunched the numbers. Someone maybe has, but Jason tweeted it. I thought it, and then I saw Jason posted on Blue Sky. Anderson said basically like that is a goal. That is a carbon copy goal of so many goals that DC United has been sort of victimized by in the last year or two. So that aside, Kansas City looks like a team that is not does not have the offensive weapons that it needs yet. And then I think also DC United has looked better and better each subsequent game, and they're continuing to get points. There are a number of teams that have no points so far this season, and there are, I think, 4 or 5 clubs that are undefeated, which technically we still are with our 2 draws to start, and a game on Saturday that seems like it should be very winnable. So it will be very funny to me if we sit here on 8 points on Saturday night, and probably I don't know where that puts us in the table. It has to put us in the top third, right? Where are we at now?
Well, I think we were 4th heading into Sunday. I can't have to look at, I think there were some other results that might change that, and I haven't looked at the table since, because it's
Philly's undefeated, right? Philly's got all wins, right?
Yeah, Philly's top right now. They certainly have all wins as my.
Either way, I think DC United are, I think we talked before about how much of a challenge it was to look at the schedule and be reasonable about points, but also hold them to account. And we could have won all these games. We could have won the first 4 games. We could be Philadelphia. It's very, very possible. And then the season's going to change, and we're going to see where we're at. But right now, I mean, you have to win your home games. You have to beat the teams that you're better than, or at least not lose to the teams you're better than. So we have to be excited about that. And I think there are some players that are improving week by week that need to be good. So I think that's probably where to start. We can look at the lineups to sort of begin the conversation.
Yeah. They're 5th, by the way. And as someone pointed out here on the chat, they're 5th between FCC and Charlotte right now. Again, schedule obviously playing a factor there. This team has not played against, we'll say, real like top top tier opponents though. Maybe after how Chicago like basically dealt with Dallas, maybe that Chicago draw looking a little bit better. Looking a little bit better right now. Let's so let's talk about like some of the good. I want to talk about the left side. I think we got a lot of questions. Obviously the first question, did DC United get a hit on Peglo?
I think so.
Yeah.
I am as big of a fan of him as you guys are fans of every other player. I like the Pirani stands. You're doing your thing. In however many minutes he played, in 70 minutes, 65 minutes, I am sold on him offensively. I'm sold on him defensively. I'm sold on his strength. He is Pirani could look at him and see a lot of things that he needs to be. Obviously, they play different positions. They do different things. But the strength and aggressiveness that Peglo has is really, really cool to see. Someone, I think Jose in the press box said it reminded him of Paul Arriola as far as the physicality and the speed and the danger. And I think that's really, really right. And for what we paid from a transfer fee perspective, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Can't be mad at that if that's the comp.
I feel like for the past, what has it been? The past few seasons with like a couple seasons with these international transfers, it's always been like, slow burn. It's always been like, they need some time to get underneath them.
They need to acclimate over a season.
Maybe they develop that, or maybe they, become. I'm trying to think of some of like the players who are like, oh, this player might be good, and then it's like, oh, they just need a season, and then never develop. I can't even think of a player that would fit that bill.
Martin Rodriguez is kind of that player, I think.
Yeah, no? a little bit. Yeah. I think you could look at, some of the players that we're probably going to talk about, your Boris Enau's, your Matty Peltolas, those types of players. So it is very, very good to see that a player comes in and immediately you're like, oh, he makes this team better. Like immediately you're like, this makes things better.
We should talk. We should frame this as we were asking how we should structure this. We really should just talk about the players, because I think we should have this conversation off the show. But anyone listening to this show has seen the game and knew how it went. And like, I think that really the value here is looking into the particular players. Like, so go ahead.
Well, I want to add just about Joao Peglo. I think it helped David Schnegg, because David Schnegg had a much, much better performance. And I was trying to find the graph, but I was looking at the passing matrix that they have in the lineup, and the thickest line for the passing that I could see was between David Schnegg and Joao Peglo. Like they were at the biggest like connection as far as on that left side. And David Schnegg had a much, much improved game. And I think here's RJN with the question: do you think David Schnegg's improved play on Saturday might have something to do with the fact that he has a true left wing and Joao Peglo playing in front of him? I think you're talking about what you need from this team, and we talked about last season the connection between Herrera and Stroud, and maybe we'll get to that in a minute. Being such an important factor this year, they didn't really have it on the left side. Now they have it on the left side,
but don't have it on the right side.
Maybe they've lost it a little bit on the right side. Now I'll get into some. I think there's some tactical reasons as to why that's the case. But
it's a monkey paw situation. They're like, I really wish we were better on the left hand side. Okay.
Yeah. And, having that type of player takes the responsibility off of a little bit off of a player like Pirani from having to be the sole like creator. There's other players that can sort of gather attention, and he can maybe sort of have a little more space to try things, and the focus doesn't always have to be on him.
You mean when Schnegg nutmegged two players on one offensive excursion up the field and then got a cross in?
Yeah, that was nice. That was good to see.
It was good. He is also physically very imposing. Like he's not a burner, but he's tall, he's strong, and fast enough to get down the line, and he can dribble. As I just said, I'm really excited that in my mind, and I think a lot of people's mind, he was the more stay-at-home wingback. Like his talent set, like sure he could cross the ball, but he wasn't going to have the most yards covered out of the defense. And I think let's just pivot to Herrera too. I want to talk about that. Like I think that my perspective is that he is being asked to do more defensively due to the fact that that's where they see their strength on the left hand side. So they are pulling the back. The defensive shape is that Herrera comes back as basically a third center back. Right-sided wing back, but I think it's partially tactical that he's being asked to do that, but I think it's a struggle when you don't engage that part of his skill set. That is why he's the best right back in the league. It's not because of his defensive ability per se, it's because of all the other things. It's similar to saying we're going to build a team in which we do not get Benteke the ball and we never get it to his head. We're going to take this one supernatural talent and skill that we have and say, no, thank you, I don't want to do that. So I think maybe it's about, I think mostly it's about that Jared Stroud is not pulling the weight that he pulled last year, and then I think maybe it's just the way the matchups look. Maybe they're just weaker. Maybe the opposition is just weaker on that side, and they decide on the week, how are we going to do this? Who gets the short straw? Who gets the stay-at-home card each time?
It does feel like now seeing Peglo out here on this game, that when they were watching this in preseason and when Peglo arrived and they saw like, this guy's good, like we think this guy could work, we need to maybe look at shifting and overloading that left side, because Jared Stroud's great, but Jared Stroud is a good, pretty good to pretty good like winger. He's not somebody that you paid a lot of salary to. He's not somebody you're expecting to be like a really skillful attacker.
Still a great crosser. That's still his top skill is top third still. He's still very good at that.
He's good at putting a cross in. And so, we need to overload that left side. We need to give a left wing back to sort of, get more numbers in there. Give Peglo options too. When he gets the ball, he maybe has a Schnegg that's able to push up, much more to get him sort of to cut inside, use his skillful dribbling, use his ability, and get opportunities. So I think it is that tactical shift you're seeing. It seems like it was designed for, okay, we need to like get the shape right, and we know it's not going to be perfect. Like I'll talk a little bit about Kojima. There were some good things I saw from Kojima, but it just didn't look like he was like completely comfortable in that left.
Wait, in the left wing spot or in the midfield?
Spot. In the left wing
Absolutely.
spot.
He's so much more of a natural in that position. I don't just say that because the goal. I think even without the goal, I would say that it's a quieter situation. I don't think he finds himself in as many sort of high leverage spots as he did on the wing, where he was trying to dribble and go through. But I think that it's a great compliment for Enow. I think it'd be a great compliment for Beltola too. I think that it's the click role. It's what is the other guy? What is the connector role? What's the guy that's going to link up, get the ball out of the midfield, out to the wings, and particularly the way they're playing with this aggressive press in the first 20 minutes seems like they're like full high octane. It continues at certain points in the game too, but that they're winning, they're dominating the first 20 minutes of most games because of that goal side here. But yeah, I think he's great there. I think that's a much better spot for him. I would prefer not to see him, and Peglo or not, I would prefer not to see him out there on the wing again. I think that's not where we see the best of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think to kind of your point about, I feel like that position he plays as the 8 kind of maximizes his strength, which is he was very good at kind of winning the ball in midfield. He and Borusino both did, I thought, a good job of winning the ball in midfield. A lot of people dump it on Borusino. I did not think he had a poor game. I don't think it was like a super fantastic game, but I don't think it was like as bad as everybody was saying. The reason he is out there, I think, and what he does a little bit better, I think, than Peltola does right now, is just he is able to put himself in good spots to win the ball in the midfield and sort of start that transition. It doesn't always pop off, but he's able to sort of disrupt a lot of that midfield and cover ground.
I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going to say the problem with Enow, I think, and why I said that, and why I think other people said that, is that his mistakes, both of them, turned into extremely good goal scoring opportunities. I don't have the XG generated per chance, but they were in bad spots of the field. They weren't physical mistakes; they were mostly mental mistakes. They were a pass he shouldn't have made, and there was a place in the field he should not have gotten dispossessed. So that is the only thing that worries me. I said at the time that reminds me of 2024 Enow, and that it looked like the game was coming too fast for him. In the previous 2 games, I thought he was obviously the first one he was man of the match, but I think even against Chicago, he was much more up to the speed of play This was his worst game of the season so far, but I think the floor is still higher than it was last year. That's
Yeah.
how I characterize him.
Yeah. And what I will preface with with all this is, Schnegg had a really awful game, like against Chicago, like we all talked about that, how bad it was. And then he was like excellent on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively. Like he was making plays defensively. He was coming back. It looked a lot cleaner, a lot better. He was on the plays. And I think you got to accept that, players are going to have games like that. That's why I'm not dumping, Jared Stroud, I think has had a rough couple of games,
Yep.
but I think he's a player that could very easily just turn around and have a really good game. And
he missed preseason. He missed some preseason time too, I think.
yeah. So I mean, it's just I think sometimes you just got to be a little bit patient with certain players.
Had no tackles successful. He was 0 for 1 on tackles the entire 72 minutes. So I think that some of that is SKC being pretty poor and not trying to move the ball through the midfield. But I don't know. I just said he can do better. He's shown us he can do a little better.
Yeah, and on the transition moment, I think both he and Kojima got kind of caught, not pressing, kind of left Eric Tommy kind of wide open. Transition defense, I thought the team better managed it. It's just the one moment that they kind of let it slip is when they got punished. They were pretty good, I thought, at sort of coming back. They didn't really allow, when Casey got the ball, they didn't really allow too much. But when the one moment they scored on. So it's certainly something when this team faces better opponents, it's going to be like super important to watch as far as that goes.
Was this discussed on the broadcast? Why Peltola had to wait? Boris now came from here. It looked like Boris now came off before the substitution was announced, or was outside of the window for the substitution.
Well, so I believe what it was. So it's the policy to curb time wasting, where you have a certain number of minutes or certain seconds, I guess, that you have to basically get off the field. And if you don't, the referee can say, nope, you're basically held till the ball goes out of play again, and you get another opportunity to come back on. So,
and hilariously for DC United, that was about 2 minutes. And they had an attack. There was a lot of they didn't get the ball back for a little bit. Jacob Merle just passed the ball to the goalkeeper, to Polskamp. It didn't make a difference, but I bet you this week, them boys going to be sprinting off the field when they're substituted.
Yeah, it's a controversial thing. I feel like that's something that should be at the discretion of the referee, and it should be something like if a player is very much hurt, and I think maybe that's what you're seeing with this rule is if a player's hurt and they're down and they're very clearly hurt, the 2-minute thing for the sub doesn't really apply. It's like, there's ways you can tell when some players are hurt, and maybe you can make sort of an educated judgment if a guy is being subbed off and just walking very slowly off the field. Maybe that's something to take a look at that. One thing about Jose Kojima sort of being in that spot, we did have a question, and I do want to see this. I'm curious to get your perspective on this. As much as Peglo was having personally, Kojima should have won man of the match. He was named man of the match on the game screen. I have Peglo as my man of the match. Wins the penalty, the assist on the goal. He's my man of the match. It seems like you're shaking you're nodding your head. You agree?
I was trying to figure out if I wanted the home jersey or the away jersey with Peglo on the way out. So no, he man of the match for me.
Yeah, I mean he was really good. We haven't really talked about Gabriel Pirani.
Yeah.
I mean, he did have the one moment he got in the box. I believe that was a cross from the left side from Schnegg, I believe, right into him, and had a really nice, good opportunity on goal. So I guess on the nature of, well, he at least had a good opportunity, and if he would have scored, maybe it would have been a different game. I think KC was also kind of loading a lot of the center of the box and sort of forcing DC out wide. I think that's why Peglo shined so much, because they had to sort of move the ball sort of to those wings, either to the right or left side. Very quickly, they established that the left side was where to go, and that's where they started to generate a lot of their opportunities. So, again, another situation where you're playing against a low block. Pirani, there were a couple times I do still see him, and I do recall specific moments of this game. I do appreciate that he is, before it felt like with him, he would never at least look for that pass. It would always be like the safe option or the pass back, or maybe he would try to dribble into nobody. Now it does feel like he's picking up his head. He's looking, the pass isn't quite getting there, but at least it's like he's making that run. He's making that pass that might open something up. So I'm still seeing a lot more. I'm still seeing a lot more than I saw last season. I think jury's still out for me. But you've always been against Bronny. Maybe nothing will change.
Against him. I think he does not have. I think once again, he played too many. He played 82 minutes. He looked effective for like 15 of those minutes. He just does not have. He does not have the duration to impact the match for a long period of time. I think he continues to be physically easy to move off the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think confidence is lacking, and certainly if he's listening to me, it should be. But like he has to find within himself sort of that confidence there. I don't see it when I watch him. So it's tough. I mean, 0.04 expected assists in the entire game. He had an opportunity that was like 0.8 expected goal on target. Like you said, if he scores, it's an entirely different day, and you probably view him differently. But it's tough. It's very up and down. I still think this team is better with him as a substitute. I think he's a guy that you throw in there in the last 30 minutes, last 20 minutes with down a goal. But the way the team is structured, and if you listen to Troy, he just talks Gabby Pirani up all the time. Whatever the answer is, even if it doesn't fit, if it was a question about center backs, he's going to say, and then Gabby Pirani doing his thing. I think partially that is to continue to build him up, build his confidence, make sure the fans know that he's not going anywhere. Like we're going to try to see, we're going to give him every chance to succeed. I don't see it. I can be wrong. I'm not wrong yet, but I certainly could be wrong.
Yeah,
on him. And with Leal out, what are you going to do? I mean, this is so he's got, it's similar to Jackson Hopkins when he had a long run on the team when there was no one else healthy. Like you're not going to be substituted out. You're not going to be moved out of the starting 11 for some time. You have the softest part of the schedule that you're playing through right now. So go out and play Montreal and make me look like a dummy. Just dominate for 85 minutes. Do that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
The stat that's making me laugh is Pego lost 11 duels. He was 3 for 12. I can't even in my mind. I can remember many times where I thought he was fouled and it didn't get called. That's what's sticking out of my mind. I'm not usually when you see a 3 for 12 on a duel situation, you're like, that guy needs to pass the ball sooner. But I don't remember that. Maybe because I had rose-colored glasses on. Does that stat sound like what your eyes saw?
It doesn't, but I mean, again, this is also a team. I do also look at that stat. If you are a pressing team, you're going to engage yourself in more duels that you're inevitably going to lose some of them. But if he wins a ball and then it falls to the opposing team, does that count as a lost duel? Probably, but that's still a move that sort of disrupts a lot of plays. So it's one of those stats you got to kind of, look at with it
grain of salt
to support your. I think stats in soccer, and maybe this is like you painted itself, but you can look at a game and you can say, man, that looked like that wasn't that great. Let me look at some, and you can see some stats. You'd be like, yeah, that kind of checks out. Like he was missing plays, missing tackles, and you can kind of quantify some of the stuff you're seeing. I feel like with this. So, and when you get an assist and win a PK, I mean, it's hard to not say you impacted the game in a positive
for
way,
sure.
So.
I thought McNaughton had a very funny 9 minutes. He almost immediately conceded a goal by clearing a ball into someone's face in the first 20 seconds on the field, and then he had another couple clearances, and then got a yellow card. Trying to think, there's. We'll talk about June. I think that's probably important, particularly the save he made at the end of the game, or the play he made at the end of the game. Are you seeing what you want to see from him week to week?
I would say that moment's big. It's nice to see him do that. I thought his distribution again, what was so impressive about so DC was like against the wind, and I think they were talking about in the broadcast like how much the wind was kind of howling. And you watched the KC goal kicks kind of get hung in the air. Like they were punted high and then they hung in the air.
The wind was howling. Can confirm
Yeah.
with the press box being a meat locker.
Being an ice box. But what was impressive to me, like I was watching his kicks, is like he's able to like put them with enough force that they're actually able to carry just about as far as they would normally with the wind into the wind. And he's able to do that. So distribution wise, like he continues, I think, to be very good at sort of getting the ball out of space. I think he had one kind of misclearance. Wasn't
Brendan Cartwright thought his distribution's actually not been very good. I feel like it's tough because what we were told is like this man is the Messi of goalkeeper distribution, and the win. I think the win had a lot to do with it. He's missing a couple, but also he's putting them generally in the right spot. Like Benteke has been hit a couple times. I don't know. I think that's less. I think that's less important. I've not seen that be the reason why the team can't generate chances.
Yeah, and I mean, I still see some moments. I think in the first game where like he hit like a nice little sidewinder to sort of start an attack. So I think it's going to take some time for him to learn that. I don't think I mean, he had one big save towards the end, which I mean, just impressive amounts of like strength to get basically careened into and like hold on to the ball and still like suffer. I hope the injury is not too bad. I hope it's just like a bruise and that he's back up.
Troy sounded worried at the moment. He sounded like mad and worried. So keep your eyes
focused. I think he was like the game should be over. Like this should be done. Like what are we doing here? So he seemed worried about it. Hopefully it's a situation where he kind of bounces back, or it's not. I don't think they would have. And maybe they knew this was going to be last kick, and they were like, to just get through it. We'll have to. I'll be very curious to see what the injury report is. I still, he's made a couple nice saves. I'm still waiting for kind of. I guess what you haven't seen that moment that kind of like jumps off the page, like Bill Hamid had in his era, where like it was just like a save that just was so amazing. It like literally rescued points from a game. And from an XG perspective, he's still like I think it's negative point. I think negative 0.88 is what I saw, based on what was given up. So, that's what I want to see kind of more of from him, and maybe that's something that's just going to take time. He really wasn't asked to do a lot in this game. You have a team that's at 0.5, XG from open play. You're not really going to be facing too many, big high scoring opportunities.
Yeah, he's if you look at his it's too early to look at it, but his ranks in goals conceded, errors led to goal, pass accuracy is only 52%, and that is so far in the season ranks him pretty poorly in MLS for goalkeepers. But that's also because, like, similar to the pressing style, we're passing the ball a lot, and we're playing. He's trying to distribute the ball. So interesting stuff. I think he's still a player that, to your point, I think there's been like two moments. He's had two moments where I've been like, that was that. I think the play in the 90s, 175th minute or whatever that was, I think was big. It's like the exact opposite of the play where he was pushed into his own goal in Chicago. And I think there was a save. I think there was a save in the first game after he conceded where he was like, in the second half, he was pretty turned on. He was making stops. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if he's kept out of training any bit this week. There's availability this week, so we'll see how it goes in that. Barraza is probably ready to go and probably biting at the chance to get an opportunity, particularly against Montreal at home. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully everything's fine.
Yeah, as much as I love Barraza, I want to. Kim June won the starting job. I think it's certainly worthwhile. And I will add, the passing percentages also do. I mean, they still have Benteke. They're still going to try that ball over the top. They want to be a little more deliberate about building, but they're not against when the game is pressing. They've used June. They've literally, I think in Chicago especially, they use June just boot it up. We need to get the ball into their field and we need to set our press so where we can go and try to win it. And so that's
He's
what they've kind of used it for.
he's back to his aerial dual ways. By the way, he was 7 for 10 for Benteke, so he's back. He's back on his BS.
So yeah, so yeah, good things from him. I also want to call it. I thought defensively, both Rawls and Bartlett did a good job. I'm I think Rawls has had kind of an uneven start, maybe a little exposed against Toronto. I thought he was a little better against Chicago, and then maybe with some mistakes, but I thought he was pretty good in this game. And Bartlett as well, I think, has been solid as kind of like the defensive back line, and the fact that the guy's already the vice captain on the team is fairly impressive from a leadership perspective. So that can only mean good things.
Just let's get a clean sheet. Let's stop leading the league in goals conceded, or getting or at least being near it.
Yeah. Again, it's the transition defense is the big thing, and that's really where I'm looking. With the way DC plays, I think they did a good job of limiting the chances. I think that Tommy goal is kind of where you look at. I'm not saying June. I'm not going to put June at fault for any of it, but that's where you kind of look at and you're like, that's the type of save that you want a top level goalkeeper maybe to try to make, and that's a save that can make taking look at what happened with Chris Brady. If Chris Brady doesn't stand on his head, DC probably walks out of there with like a 4-2 win. Let's be honest. Like they were peppering and they were trying to go for the win. That's the type of moment that you want to see out of your goalkeeper. You want to see him go out. Distribution's great. All those things are great, but making those big types of saves that can keep your team in games and earn points are massive.
Use those hands. That's what you're out there for. That's why you got gloves. I think also we didn't call out, but it's big that your leader, your captain, goes. I mean, obviously for him this is nothing, but misses a penalty, comes right back, scores a penalty. Doesn't even hesitate, converts it, doesn't even think about it. That's good. I mean, he was perfect before then, so I'm glad that continues. I think he had a couple other opportunities that he would have thought he should have buried. Mm-hmm. That's always the story of Benteke, but here he is, goal game.
Yeah.
So,
not the flying start he got as far as the golden boot race, but good to see it. And hey, this team has finding other ways to score with other players are stepping up. I think we're still on the. So yeah, we got goals from Benteke, and then we have Inao, Kojima, and Mural. So those are the kind of. So we're still on who's going to be the first one to get the second goal. That's good. We're still on second goal watch.
It's going to be Benteke 15, every other player 1 goal. We're all going to spread it around.
It's going to be exactly like it was in 2024. I think overall this is a good win. Nice come from behind win. And let's talk about. I want to talk about the end of the game. Dominic Badji. I think he is a player that fits a role so well with this team. You talk about he probably deserved a goal against Chicago coming off the bench. I think he is showing to be a very effective Benteke light. He's not going to be the physical dominant presence that Benteke is. No one is. Like no one in this league is. Like Benteke is a unicorn when it comes to like his ability to win the aerial duels, to be that player. He's also a player. He's played in Europe. He's played at some of the highest level. But it was very nice to be up 2-1, and you get to sub out Benteke, so you give him 10 minutes of rest. You don't have to risk injury. You put yourself in that position to where you do that, and then you bring on Badji, and Badji just couple moments just completely killed off a lot of that extra time, limited the chances that Kansas City had. I thought he was excellent. He didn't try to play hero ball. He didn't try to go out and get a goal himself. I think he knows his role. Like he knows, like I'm back up for Christian Benteke. That's my role. I'm going to help this team, bring that same sort of like physical presence, even though I can't do all the things Benteke does, but I'm going to see out games. So I think he deserves a shout out for just coming in, filling a role and doing it well. And it's incredibly refreshing. I will say this year, I know the joke is we got bodies, but there does feel like there are some good bodies now behind him. There are players like, okay, that player serves a purpose. We look at Mural and how he stepped up. Badji.
No more Nigel Roberthas on this team.
Yeah, choosing between Peltola and Borisino, and I think either one of those players, you get different things from them. I think.
I wanted to say one thing about Peltola. That's the thing he hasn't had a lot of minutes so far, and I would say he's yet to really put his stamp on the game, but there's a physicality difference from year to year. He is much more comfortable being a villain. He is much more assertive on the field. I think that's only positive. I think someone said like the clickhousery thing was sort of the baton was passed to him. And I think that's accurate. I think he hasn't had a lot of minutes yet, but when I look at him on the field now, I see a different player, and I think it's good that keep him out of center back, have him just sort of be that guy in the midfield. I'll be interested to see if maybe he gets his first start here on the weekend. Now he's got enough time to sort of cycle through. We'll see what you're not going to take Kojima out, but maybe Enow comes. Maybe Enow and he switched this game. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's going to be that's a storyline to watch. And unlike last year, there is very clearly competition in the lineup. And DC, throughout the RFK days, were better when they had competition, and every team's better when there's competition. You do have set players who start, but you do need players that are kind of pushing others to kind of be better. And I think that can only for my mind be a positive thing for the team kind of moving forward. We'll see. We got some, this is kind of the last sort of soft opponent. Montreal, I will say they are my team. They are a team in my mind that they're not good. They are a team, an ownership that they're even cheaper than DC. They literally went and just paid a bunch of gam for a bad designated player on another team. That would be the New England Revolution, and Veroni, I think, is who they traded for. That's that sort of sums up Montreal as an organization. They do not spend money. They do not go out and really break the bank. They are infamous. They had the American player who made an appearance during January camp, who was fighting on amateur league game under a fake name, that type of stuff.
They also had Drogba, which was weird that they did, and that might have been the last time they were seriously trying to make signings of any sort, even though he was 50, but still scoring goals for fun either way.
Yeah, I mean, and not to say DC takes them lightly. They are still a team that has talented players. Owusu's a good player.
They've scored twice as many goals as Kansas City has this season.
Yeah.
Which is 2, by the way, total. But still, you can't take them lightly. Any team, don't bet MLS. Certainly don't bet a bunch of money on DC United this weekend. I did tell my friend, he was asking for a bet on this game. I said both teams to score. I said Kansas City hasn't scored. They're gonna score against DC United. You could bet that, but I think DC also will. So
yeah.
So what's your itch on this game? What do you feel? So this is a team with 0 points, -4 goal differential, no impact players that have really been. You had mentioned sort of one player to look out for. DC United coming high off of 3 points at home. What are you feeling about for this weekend? Not knowing any injuries.
Yeah, what am I feeling? What am I feeling for this game? You know what? I'm gonna go on a limb. I'll say I think DC gets a shutout. I think DC goes in. I think they batten down hatches. I think this is the one team they got a shutout against last year too. They got a 1-0 victory off a wonder goal from Pedro Santos. One of the few shutouts they had at all last year. And I think you also got to look at Montreal has to play on the road. This is their third. This will be their 4th straight road game because of the conditions. They physically cannot play at their stadium right now.
What's going on there?
I don't think it's anything of that. I think it's just weather. They always start on the road.
This is the scheduling. Got it.
Yeah, this is scheduling. So they consistently start on the road. I think they'll be back. Just curious if I can pull up their schedule quick enough, but they always have this road trip. They don't have their home game until April 12th. So they have to play a whole month on the road.
Sounds like they need a dome stadium. Sounds like they need to play at the old Montreal Expos Olympic Stadium.
Well, that's what they used to play, but that stadium is not.
It'd be funny though.
They played some Champions Cup games there.
It's concrete. Andre Dawson's knees, the Hawks' knees are left there on the ground. Yeah, Montreal. My prediction is they do not get a shutout. 3-1. 3-1 is my expectation. I'm gonna have to see a shutout with my own eyes a couple times before I believe that it's actually possible.
I think they were close. Obviously one chance away. I think they really shut down Kansas City. I think I could see Kansas City as right now better organization and a better, even though they're a team that's still kind of building. So I think DC did a good job shutting them down. I think Montreal is not as good as Kansas City right now, and just sort of organizationally, like a lot of like parts and just their coaching situations always up in the air. So I think this team goes out. I think it's a 2-0 victory. I think it's just like it's 1-0. I think it's kind of similar in some cases to KC. Like they generate chances, they maybe get a goal early. I will say one other thing about this game. It felt very like, I don't want to say safe, but like it was very controlled in their attack to it. It wasn't like they were throwing numbers forward. They seemed very cognizant about the fact that like, we have to be measured about when we go forward. We can't just bomb forward. We got to be, measured about our press and when we attack. So I think that's going to kind of continue in this game.
Did you get to watch any other MLS games around the league or see any results that caught your eye? You mentioned Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago going up against, I think they're starting to put it together. They got a win against Dallas.
They were down 1-0 and then scored 3 consecutive goals in the second half.
Yeah, man. LA. I think LA is like the story. Alarm bells should be.
Which one? Which LA?
LA Galaxy. Sorry, it should be clear. LA Galaxy, man. Alarm bells should be ringing. They are a team that has had to sell parts. They have obviously. Ricky Puig is out for I think most of the year. I think he might be back in the summer if they're lucky. And they got to get rid of Joveljic to KC. They've had
Joseph Paintsill also still injured, a player who was a major impact for last season.
I mean, they are proof positive. Like, money can only get you so far. They haven't won a game. They just got. I will say, like, and again, I was watching highlights, but I think with LA they did generate a lot of chances against St. Louis, but that type of result, I feel like, is very worrisome if I'm coach and I'm watching a team where they put together good chances, they couldn't get the result, and then they give up a goal and then they just kind of melt at home. That's very concerning. That's like a mental like toughness type of thing that you are struggling. You look at kind of what happened with DC and Chicago, where they went up a goal, but maybe they just couldn't find that sort of second goal. And then they found themselves down, and then they kind of fought back and found ways to generate chances and to get a result. So the way LA kind of melted, I think, is something to be concerned about.
I'm excited to watch Seattle right now. That's my team. That's my team that I'm watching. My second team, I think. That's a team that's in CONCACAF Champions League. They're playing again tomorrow night. They rotate. They rotated their squad in this game against LAFC, and it didn't matter. They still scored 5 goals. So I don't know how the defense is going to hold up, but their attack is pretty fearsome. When you look at the fact who they added in the preseason, they raided the cupboard at FC Dallas and didn't really get weaker. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's certainly an interesting, particularly when the reigning MLS Cup champion is a shell of itself, and first team to have won MLS Cup the previous year and then lost 3 games in a row to start the season. DC United previously was tied with Toronto for 2 losses consecutively. So that's another record that LA Galaxy takes away from DC United. But this time it's a good one. We're happy they took this one. You still have more stars, but also you lost the most times after a championship. So take that.
Seattle, I think, we're a team, and what they did this offseason is a perfect example of, taking advantage of your status in the league. You are, and this is where DC like has had to struggle. You have to prove to yourself, I think, around the league. The reason DC didn't attract a lot of big time free agents, why they had to go international, is because you have not shown yourself to be like a team that's going to be competitive. Guys like Areola, guys like Ferreira, know where they are in their contract. Ferreira might still have some ideas about Europe, but I think he knows, like, I'm probably going to be in MLS for the rest of my career. I want to be with an organization that wins and is competitive and makes MLS Cups and playoffs. Seattle's that team. That's a team that goes up. Ariel's the same way. Yeah, he's getting towards, like, his national team dream is definitely over. Like, Europe's done. He wants to go out now. He's like, okay, I want to play out the rest of my career. I am a good to very good, but like borderline elite MLS level player. Yep. I want to go somewhere. And Seattle took advantage of that. They took, I think, both those players, I do not think, are on DP contracts, or at least one of them is not. So
Ariel is definitely on a TAM contract.
and that is what you gain when you are an organization who also has a good youth development program, who can develop players and sell and get GAM.
Yep.
You can.
Team of choice matters in a league with where that sort of movement's possible. Jesus Ferreira only 24. I think it's certainly possible that he could use this as a platform. But Ariola at 30, you're absolutely right. He and Morris together are just like, let's just win, man. Let's just be good out here in Seattle. Let's
And
do
I
it.
mean, shoot, man, you get to play in the Club World Cup, so you get to play against, regardless of kind of how much of a joke it is from an MLS perspective, you get to go play against like your top European opponents. That matters in a lot of ways.
I'm just feeling 700 years old, realizing that A, Jordan Morris is 30, B, he is the all-time leading scorer for Seattle, and I remember him coming up as a was he an academy product or did he play 1 year in college? I'm trying to remember how his story started. Jordan Morris was the player who Klinsman brought in as a college player or
Stanford, yeah.
yeah. So so wow, just time passing.
Yeah, man, 87 goals. It is also still really impressive. I think they did a list of like the leading goal scorers and around the league and like all time, and like Jaime Moreno, man, still on that list. Like, not top 5 anymore, but like like the Dan Marino role, you get to look back and be like, man, his numbers are still like really good, so really holds up. So
Jaime Moreno was the player. I forget the name they call it. It's like something legend, some legend of the game. He came out and brought a flag. So they're trying to like do a thing where they have a club legend come out, start the game, try to build some sort of traditions. Like I think you talked about it before. Better than the New England Revolution throwing tea on the field. They still haven't quite figured out. They haven't quite figured out when and how to build up the atmosphere around it yet. But I applaud the effort to tie into the history.
they need a stadium, man. It looks dead. It looks dead out there.
Where?
You talk about? Are you sorry? Were you talking New England, right?
I was Moreno was there for Red Audi Field for DC United. I was talking about they do that thing. I was making fun of the tee boxes, but yeah, they do need a stadium. I think next year they're going to start. I think they'll start construction of it. So
well, yeah, New England already had some, man. They had the guys with like the muskets. Like that was always like
that was cool enough. I think they just stuck with that, but they had to innovate.
All right, folks. I think we got that's gonna do it for DC. We do got some Spirit to talk about. The Spirit have hold on a second. Do we have any more questions? Should we get to more questions? Brendan Zabron says, will we see Gavin Turner before the US Open Cup? Should we be worried that Tubbs isn't the first center back off the bench? Do we think we see Gavin Turner before the Open Cup? I think it's hard.
Probably not. No, not without an injury.
Yeah, I think you're looking at, I think if the team is up by a lot and they are like cruising in a game, maybe you see him get a run out. But I think with game on the line scenario type situations, probably not. I think the Open Cup might be the first big opportunity where you see him maybe get an appearance out there. I think we're definitely trending. It feels like we're trending towards we start getting close to the window closing. Is there a loan that they're going to look at for either a championship or, other team for him to give him some development time?
Plus, Barajas needs to get on the field. So if Turner is going to play, he's going to play as a 10. So he could come in for Pirani, which I'm fine with, as you know, that would be okay. Leal is still going to be the first guy off. Or if they're in a situation, like you said, if they're up 3 goals, and then you can say, all right, this is a great, I think their chance for 3 goals up may have already passed. I think that if you look at the schedule, maybe Montreal, maybe this is the game, who knows? But Barajas has to play because he is on loan until June, and we have to know if there's at all any purpose of him existing here. He's got a jersey, he's got a locker, he's got a number. We got to see what he's got.
Yeah, wearing number 99 too, so you gotta trot that out.
Yeah, just for the visuals, if nothing else.
Yeah, so I would say Open Cup's going to be probably the first big opportunity, and that kicks off relatively soon, man. We got the first round with the I'll be going out to the Kickers game to see them play Virginia Dream, definitely on that Wednesday night. So Open Cup is back, folks, and we're back in it. So trying to see any other questions before we move on. I think that was about it. Oh, yeah, RJ, man, you dropped some good questions. I don't know. Yeah. Where do you think Christian Benteke will someday be on DC's Mount Rushmore?
Nowhere unless they win a trophy while he's on the team.
Yeah. Did we get to Jeff's Patreon? Jeff's question on Patreon.
No,
I
we
think
have
we kind
not.
of covered it, but yeah, let's do it. The right side of the attack seems less dynamic than last year based on the first few games. Is this because of missing click with Stroud, any rare formation change, or something else? I will be curious to watch. I do think maybe putting putting Kojima out there seems to be like, let's give like another sort of attacking link up option to where maybe we can give some ability for Stroud to kind of link up. I think it's very much. I think you'll see Stroud start next week. I think you're going to want, and I think it's going to be an opportunity for him to get out there and impress. But I mean, Mural is definitely chomping at the bit here. So I would not be surprised if that starts to become a question of competition if Stroud continues to struggle, and then maybe it's okay, now you got to kind of earn your spot back. We're gonna go with Mural and try that out. So certainly something to watch. And you know what? I did not even look at Discord, so I feel really bad, guys. I promise every week I tell you this, I'm going to be a lot more organized.
We're here. I'm reading the questions. The questions are
Oh, good one from Calvin. I do want to talk about
yes.
this one. Says Ted, you've been asking for Onside for a couple seasons now. Have you seen it, and is it worth watching? I have seen it. It is. If you are an MLS fan, if you're a soccer fan, or really if you're an MLS fan, yeah, it's worth it. There's a lot of good stuff. DC makes. There's really no mention of DC.
We
I was
don't
very,
exist.
yeah. There's only really so much. I do think. I do think maybe it would benefit them to kind of look at the same because they're trying to do what Formula One's doing. Formula One can do it because they have 10 teams. They can kind of cover all the drivers. They can sort of dedicate. You've got 10 episodes. You can basically do a story on each team, dynamic driver for each episode. You got 30 teams in MLS. There's no way you're going to be able to cover it with any breath. Um, I don't know how that. It was very clear that they talked about Messi. They talked about Miami. They obviously talked about LA. I thought the stuff with Ricky Puig was really good.
I thought the Philly episode was really good.
Oh, the
That
Philly
was my
episode was
favorite.
really good.
That
Yeah,
was my favorite one.
yeah, it's really good when they highlight stuff. I thought, the man, dude, my heart my heart broke for Tim Parker, man. Like the trade, and then he's like, you see like the house where he's like with his family and everything, and then he gets traded to Boston, and then he's literally like in a house by himself that's like empty, and like he's having to talk to his kids over just like the realities of kind of the trade market within MLS. It's worth watching. You have to buy an Apple TV Plus subscription. Go out there. They're free trials you can find. You get that
And
free
then watch
trial.
Severance.
Yeah, and then watch Severance. You got Severance too, which is a great show. So definitely, I think it's worth watching. I think I've been waiting for it for years. I haven't heard. I'm trying to are they doing? They're going to do it like next year, right? This is going to be like a yearly thing. Like
I think
it
so.
has to be. It has
The
to be.
one shoulder programming that they actually follow through. I thought it was great. I think it might be even good if you're not a super big MLS fan. I think there's still enough stuff. At least the Philly episode. I would recommend the Philly episode to anyone because there's pathos in this episode with the dad and with the 14-year-old wonderkind. It's like
And the fact that there's a brother who plays for the team
and intentionally a player who's doing really well for them too. So yeah, I think check that. If you watch one episode, watch that one. That'll be my recommendation.
Yeah.
So there was oh, go ahead.
I was saying, and seeing the coaches drop F bombs, and I will say it got a little bit. What I will say about this, I think the later episodes when they get to the playoffs, it kind of struggles a little bit for me. Kind of like doesn't really pick up, and they highlight John Tolkien, which go look up John Tolkien on social media if you want to maybe get why I'm possibly rolling my eyes a little bit at how he's kind of featured. It definitely felt like maybe they were struggling a little bit. There was very clearly like in the beginning, like the teams they were highlighting and the players they were highlighting were very much like there was going to be like they needed some conclusion. So I'd be curious to know if like they went to DC and they maybe like did have a profile like on Benteke, have a bunch of B-roll that they just kind of never used, or how they sort of chose that intention. But the development would be interesting to me because it's not
the stories just aren't here. They're just not. I would struggle to think of a 45-minute episode or a 30-minute episode on any of our players that like the Ricky Puig episode's great because he talks for if you don't know the player, Like he was playing and doing well in Barcelona, and then all of a sudden he got frozen out, and then he came here and he became a star after, and he's sort of reacclimating inside it. Or the Philly episode, that one's just like a soap opera. Uh, it's upsetting to me that in 10 episodes they ran out of like really compelling human interest stories to tell. That's an indictment on the league that there's not like a big long list of like, oh yeah, absolutely we should talk to this person, that they've had a crazy life, they were a refugee or whatever it was. Yeah, so we'll see what season 2 looks like.
Yeah, I mean, there was some cool stuff too, I think, with Charlotte too, and like their transfer window trying to woo oh shoot, the German.
Zaha?
No,
No?
no, 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 no. It wasn't Zaha. It was the German goodness gracious, why can't I'm blanking on his name. He plays for the Galaxy now. Big German superstar, played
Marco
for Dortmund.
Royce?
Michael Royce, yeah. They had the whole thing about them courting Michael Royce and how LA kind of just came in and I felt that could have been played up a little bit more. I felt they could have done a little bit more with that.
They don't want to admit the natural structural advantages that cities like LA have over Charlotte.
Well, they do talk about it a little bit in the show. So they do talk about it a little
Good.
bit. So yeah, it's worth watching. I would definitely say it's worth checking out. All right, let's talk Spirit. And we got a Discord question related to Spirit. DC not Washington Spirit, winners of the Challenge Cup, and therefore the winners of NWSL. I don't make the rules. 1-1 draw, 4-2 win on PKs. Obviously, the Spirit have a bunch of players who are still out on injury. Trini Rodman, I don't think made an appearance.
She warmed up, but didn't play.
Yeah, warmed up, didn't play.
Corey Bethune hanging out up in the luxury box.
Yeah, Corey Bethune still coming back from injury. You look at Chloe Ricketts getting a start as sort of that number 10 creator. Stinger's like maybe one good moment. I think she's still kind of she's
rough around the edges would be how I'd characterize it. I think there were multiple like could have been serious card offenses just because she was kind of throwing her body around. There was a two-footed situation. This is a player that needs minutes, so I'm glad that she got minutes. I think she needs to play. This is a player that needs to be a Dallas Trinity like with the rest of them. To your point, she turns 18 in May, right? Mm-hmm. So as soon as that happens, if there's like a week left in the season, send her out there, give her a couple games because she needs that real speed game opportunity.
It is interesting that she gets a start in this game. I mean, I will say it does lead me to believe maybe there's a idea of how she's going to. Is she going to maybe make more of an appearance for the Spirit, in this sort of early start to the year, or is it going to be
while Croy is recovering? Perhaps this is when this is her time to shine. Maybe potentially. This is the Jacob Merrill situation. She's taking advantage of some injuries in depth to get some opportunities. I think there are not too many things that we're going to touch on too much on this game. The Lacey Santos free kick was a banger. Mm-hmm. Certainly one of the cooler things. The goal that Orlando scored after a VAR situation on a penalty, it was a free kick situation. Ashley Hatch does not cover herself in glory in the wall. I think that's the one thing that stands out for me is like she sort of she just completely noped out of the wall, and great shot by Raphael, but that should not have happened. And then you have Aubrey Kingsbury doing Aubrey Kingsbury things in the penalty shootout. I think this team should be aiming for penalty kicks whenever there's an opportunity. Like if there's ever a situation, they're like, let's just go for that, guys. Let's just hang on.
I did want to call out what led to the goal was Mura, the player who's maybe looked at. They need a replacement. They need a replacement out there in center midfield because they're hurt there, and that's a situation to watch. I think we all kind of watching how Hirschfeld. Her giveaway, I think she kind of gives away the ball and then goes and commits the foul. Very close to a penalty. They end up scoring on the ensuing free kick. So, pick your poison.
Ball don't lie.
But something to watch, as a team that wants to be, control possession, also use the press. Those types of moments are things you can't have. Those are big moments that can potentially, swing games. And, I think we think this team is going to be extremely good, but it's also they're not withstanding. And, without Andy Sullivan kind of being that sort of anchor in that defense, in that midfield, that's certainly going to be something to watch. And maybe something for you're going to see them, switch some players around and try to figure that out.
As I look at the players available, I'm feeling less bullish on Chloe Ricketts being a factor going forward. Just looking at who the other options were off the bench, they're like injury replacement players, national team replacement players. So I don't know. That's not looking good. I want to call out Rebecca Bernal scoring a penalty in her first appearance. Looks super confident. Looks looks pretty good out there. And I think just if you look at what the roster that they were able to put out there, and Orlando pretty much going all guns blazing here. If I'm looking at this, I think that's very close to what their roster was in the championship game last year. It's great to win a trophy. You could tell Jonah was like, hey, happy to win a trophy. I'm more happy that we were able to do this with the roster that we have at our disposal right now. But the season starts this week. Next week?
Or this week. This week, yeah. So this weekend.
Get healthy, folks. Everybody, quickly get loose, get comfy, or don't get comfy.
And I mean, the benefit is like you're still playing an Orlando team that's still very, very good. Like they are still an exceptionally good team. Kept a lot of players from last season. Obviously having Marta back. Marta still looks like Marta. Very, very good. They are not going to play the Orlando Pride every week, so I'll be curious to see. They get the Dash coming to town. They're not a team that was elite last season. They are a team that is definitely rebuilding, I think, as far as what we've seen. So opportunity to go out there and to maybe make a statement and of intent. And I'll be curious. I mean, it seems like Trendy Rodman has not been making appearances for the national team. There's definitely been a kid glove scenario.
She's ready. I think she'll be ready to go week 1.
Yeah,
to be honest,
it was just like, we don't want you hurt. You're too important. Let's run some other players out here. And they still got the win, so I think that's certainly something to be happy about.
Really rough on the attendance front for that game. Obviously, it is a preseason match, but you'd hope to do better there with the run that they had on a Friday night. Unfortunate.
Really, Orlando, and I don't really get it. It's I've been to Orlando City games when they play DC. They get a lot of fans out there. I've always been like, looked at the Pride, and I've been disappointed. I'm like, where's the missing? Why isn't that translating like that? Like you look at like Portland, it translates, like, and Seattle, it translates. Like there are most of the people that come out to Seattle also come out for the rain. I don't know if it's like a time scenario or what have you, but I feel like the Pride, with the amount of talent, they're a championship winning team. You would have expected a bigger crowd out there for a team that just won a championship. So also, it was a Friday night too, so that can be sometimes difficult for families to manage. So
Jonah's quote on Chloe says, she helped us a lot. It was not easy for her competing against Emily Sams, one of the best center backs in the league. She's improving a lot. Everything I see in training, I like a lot. She deserved to play today. It was not an easy game, but at the end of the day, having the opportunity to play this type of game, being so young, is going to be important, especially for her evolution as a player, because she will have a long career as a footballer. That last part says, like, this is for the future. Yeah. Chloe, don't assume this is a week 1 situation for Chloe.
Yeah,
that's okay.
And I mean, there were some moments. I think she had one sort of shot opportunity, and I'm like, I think if there's like a Corey Bethune, maybe an Ashley Hatch on that ball, or a Trinity Rodman, that ball is ending in the back of the net. She just couldn't quite get like enough power to like make that shot, really dangerous. So yeah, work in progress. But it's interesting that she got the start out there. I think it's like, it shows a lot of trust that Jonah has, and she's a player that she's been on the team now. Goodness, she's like at least a 3rd-year pro at this point, right? Like we signed, like I think she's been on the team for like 3 years now. So it feels like she should be older. And then you look and she's like, oh, she's just 8. She's just now
17.
turning 18.
Right.
So I mean, it's the same thing with some DC guys. And we talk about like how long Jackson Hopkins been on the team, still like 18 or 19 years old. So all right, folks. I think that is going to do it.
We didn't mention the one thing. Last Spirit note: Paige Mateo has a knee injury, is out for some amount of time, probably mid-season. So keep that in mind as you look at the roster defensively.
Yeah, and Ian Jeevers asking about Chloe Ricketts on the Discord. Thought first half thought she was the most active and dangerous Spirit player. Thoughts on her performance?
We've
talked about it. Sorry about that. We just didn't get to your question. We'll do better. We always try to do better.
So players that weren't on the roster that should be hopefully close to returning. Just it's a long list, so quickly just run through it. Kay Wiesner, Courtney Brown, Ule Sar, hopefully sometime soon, Rose Kowasi, Heather Stainbrook. So there's lots of players that are normally around and in the roster, and we typically don't have 3 injury replacement players on the bench, but this game we did. So ready to go, hopefully, for week 1.
Yep. Against the Houston Dash. Friday, March 14th, it'll be on Amazon Prime. So they get another Amazon Prime debut starting at 8 p.m. So doesn't conflict with DC, so you can
I love that. Big fan of that.
All right. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Presumably, John will be back. Also, if you're a Patreon, John has some audio from the press box, so that's some new stuff we'll give you with DC and the Spirit whenever we get out there as well. So definitely check it out. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will catch you guys next week.
Vamos.
Jesus, we went an hour and 15 minutes.